Hello, PMI Ghana, and welcome to this month's edition of your Professional Development Online webinar. Today, I'll be talking about business agility. How can project management practice adapt to uncertain times? Your presenter today is Paul Opong, and I have put my details up front so that in case I manage to bore you and you want to switch off, we can continue the conversation either via email, LinkedIn, or Twitter. So my last job in Ghana, I used to work with EcoBank eProcess as a technology business partner. I worked as a business analyst and as a project manager. Currently, I'm working with a company called MIGSOP Cubed as a consultant. Now, MIGSOP Cubed is a project management consultancy. It's one of the world's leading consultancies dedicated to project, program, portfolio, and change management. And we have over 1,600 employees in 30 plus locations. And we work in industries like aerospace, aviation, financial services, public sector, and many other industries. I currently work out of the Australian office, and that's where I'll be talking to you today from. The focus for this session today, I've broken it down into 4 areas. We'll look at the new normal, the need to adapt, how the project management practice is affected, or how as a project management professional, the new environment affects you, and then we'll talk about how we can adapt. The only certainty in today's fast-moving and globalized world is that businesses can expect uncertainty. There's nothing that is assured these days. Change is on the increase, and it's coming in hard, it's coming in fast, and it's coming in different directions. A term that is used to describe the environment we are experiencing is VUCA, and I'm sure you've heard this term several times and probably tired of it. But VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's harder than ever before to plan for what might happen as a project management professional or even as a business. So businesses and project managers have to adapt quickly to survive. But what do we need to do? Is the project management profession affected at all? If so, if it is affected, how can project management professionals adapt to best support the business as we know it today? Faced with business landscape of VUCA that we just talked about, many organizations, almost all organizations, need to reorient themselves. This is because there are new threats that were unlikely to have been thought of or conceived in the past that are being introduced on a regular basis these days. I'll give you an example. If you look at Ghana Telecom a few years back, they had a monopoly. Who would have thought during those times that you are going to have so many telecoms organizations operating in Ghana? But that's the new reality. So if they didn't plan for this, it's here now. If you look at Ghana Commercial Bank a few years ago, they were probably the only bank. But look at the number of banks that are around now. Even when you take the banks that are around now, if you have been following the news in Ghana, if you look at what happened, that they had to consolidate some banks, it's because of this new environment where changes come, customer needs change, legislation changes, and so many things happen that you really need to adapt. Even when you look at the banks that operate now that are stable, you can see that if you look at what the telecoms are doing with mobile money payments, that is a new threat Who would have thought that telecom companies were going to affect financial services industry? So businesses that operate on old-fashioned model will be unlikely to respond sufficiently and intensely to this stress. Instead of acting like bureaucratic, slow-moving machine of the past, organizations must become more nimble. They have to be ready to react quickly to change. Doing so will give them a much greater chance of surviving the myriad of ever-changing challenges that they face. There are a couple of ways that organizations need to adapt. They have to look for opportunities to minimize waste. They have to look at reducing handovers. They have to look at increasing transparency. They have to look at empowering their people. They have to make sure that they are hiring the right people so they can empower them. And of course, they have to cut out needless bureaucracies. To do all this is likely to require cultural change in some cases, so that people can adjust effectively to the new ways of working or the new normal. The organization will be best to retain its relevance by either changing its operating model or optimizing it. The way you do business, the way we run our projects. And to do this is likely to involve restructuring, introducing new frameworks, introducing new tools, introducing new processes, hiring new people with different skill sets, introducing new roles and responsibilities. People that are already on the job, team members, they must redefine themselves. Because as the teams change and help the organization to adapt, we must change as well to survive. And when I talk about changing to survive, I'm not just talking about teams in the software development department. I'm talking from HR to finance to marketing to procurement. Everyone must change across the entire value stream, right up to the door of the CEO to the board. Everybody must turn themselves and adapt to this new environment that we are in. That brings me to the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is business agility. So agility is the ability to move quickly and easily, the ability to think and understand quickly. Now, when we apply this to the business agility is when an organization can respond quickly to what's happening in the environment. So if there's new legislation, will you still be able to operate? If your customer needs change, will you still be able to operate? Being able to adapt to all these new changes in the environment. That's what brings about business agility. So being agile as a business, being able to transform your operations to meet whatever challenge that is up in the market. But I want to make a clear distinction that agile and agility, there's a difference. Agility is our ability to respond to change. Now, we know that companies, teams, individuals, or anyone, any stakeholder who cannot respond to changes around them will struggle to compete and perform and succeed. You can't work on the old model. If you think of an organization that has gone out of business or lost significant market share or began to lose credibility in the eyes of the customer, then you are probably looking at the effects of a lack of agility. If you look at some of the banks that were consolidated recently, I'm sure that if you look at the reasons why they they were not performing, you realize that they have not been able to keep up with the times. They are still operating on old models that don't work. The customer has changed. Keeping one step ahead of the game requires some emotional maturity and clarity of thought. You know, there's a fine line between chaos and carefully deviating from the plan in a considered way to meet changing demands. This is where Agile comes in. Agile is a bunch of tools and techniques that help us to achieve agility. And this is not new. You probably recognize some of them as a simple extension of some classic ways of working. For example, I'll give you an example. Planning. That's an Agile tool. You probably always plan whatever you did. But like all Agile methods, the key difference is that the Agile planning session will be short, will be focused, and it will be done as a team. Putting people at the center of the heart of every Agile method, and then you can probably look at the technique and spot an Agile method anywhere it's used. And it involves a cross-section of skills, a cross-section of disciplines, collaborating, working together. Now, Agile frameworks like Scrum or Kanban are good places to start if you want to introduce agility into your organization. So I wanted to make that clarity about Agile and agility. And I also want to make the clarity about being Agile and doing Agile. Doing Agile is not the same as being Agile. Doing Agile can be learned. You can go into a 2 to 3 day class that will teach you the basics of Scrum and Kanban, XP, or whatever flavor of the month methodology that you want to use. But being Agile, that requires much more. It requires a cultural shift to an Agile mindset, as well as changes to the ways that you manage your employees, for instance, changes to the ways that you procure, changes to the way that you hire, changes to the way that you run your project, changes to the way that you motivate, the way you train. There's no question that doing Agile by itself leads to certain benefits. So if you are doing, for instance, your daily stand-up as a ceremony, as part of Agile, you are definitely going to see the benefits of improved communication and visibility as to what each team member is doing. Because in your stand-ups, you are going to talk about, this is what I've done, this is what I'll be doing, these are my blockers. You will see some increases in productivity, definitely. And perhaps the ability to see priorities with the intent of conditional changes. But the transformative benefits occur from being Agile, not doing Agile. By which I mean consistently, predictably responding quickly in the face of change. I'm not talking about you being able to respond to the one-off legislation that is coming down the line from BOG or whichever government body. I'm talking about you being to respond to that and being able to respond to a customer need 1 month ago, 2 weeks in the future, 3 years down the line, and still being able to delight your customers. And when I talk about your customers, I'm talking about the internal customer, I'm talking about the external customer, and working with the employees to achieve a common goal. So being Agile is not the same as doing Agile. Being Agile is a mindset change rather than doing Agile, which is the ceremonies that you have, your daily stand-ups or your backlog planning or your sprints or whatever methodology that you are using. That brings me to business agility. Business agility, we can break it into 3 parts. being able to sense, to respond, to adapt. To sense in your organization or as a project management practice or as a project management professional, are you able to identify the trends in your industry? Can you see where the environment is going in a month's time, in a year's time? As a business, do you know what your customer is going to ask for in 6 months? What is the trend? You should be able to sense it. When you're able to hear some of these things that are in the market, then it gives you the ability to innovate at the edges. So innovation at the edges is not going full out, doing small things, trying small things. Are you able to track your leading indicators as a business, as a project management practice, as a project management professional? What is changing? What are they asking for now? And with all that information, are you able to predict what is going to come down the line? So you have to be able to sense. And then once you sense whatever it is, you have to be able to respond. And responding means trying new things like a proof of concept or rapid prototyping or delivering an MVP, something that works, that you can continually add to it to satisfy a customer. Are you able to decentralize your decision-making process? So for instance, in your organization, when you are starting projects, does your investment committee sit every 3 months before they approve things? If that's what's happening, what if you identify something 1 week after they sit? Do you have to wait 3 months? That is not agility. So those are the things that you need to do to respond. And then after you have responded, you need to assess what you got from how you responded with your proof of concept or your prototype and see, where did we go wrong? How can we make it better? Have we failed? And when I'm talking about failure, I'm talking about failing very quickly so you can remedy it. Because the faster you fail, the faster you can resolve it. And then after you have responded, gotten an MVP or gotten something that works, are you able to adapt? Are you able to now add whatever service, product, whatever it is? Are you able to reconfigure your operations to work with it? As a business, as project management professional, as a PMO, are you able to scale or shrink on demand? So for instance, I know some of you work, for instance, like if you work at Nestle or you work at Diageo, you know that there are periods that your organization becomes very busy. Are you able to scale to meet that demand? And then when the demand is a bit down, are you able to scale down? Even in financial services or whatever industry, you should be able to scale up or down to meet the customer demand. That brings you the agility. And as part of adapting, you have to remember, when we talk about agility, the number one thing that you have to put in mind is always delighting your customer on a continuous basis. So it doesn't have to be big chunks of delight all the time. It can be small chunks of delight, but it has to come in on a consistent basis. So when you are able to sense, respond, and adapt to whatever is happening in the environment, your organization becomes agile. That's when you achieve business agility. Then you have the capability to experiment. You have the capability to reach the market fast. And when I talk about market fast, I'm not just talking about products. I'm talking about that new service that you are introducing. Are you able to reach your customer? And your customer doesn't have to be external. It can be an internal customer. If you are making it easier for a particular department to request for projects, how are you making that process easier? Is your department agile enough? Are your decisions based on insights on data? Are they evidence based? So when you really achieve agility, you should be able to do all this within the organization. As a project management professional, how are we affected? Just as every other team in the organization is affected, so too are we. Perhaps the project management profession is hit the hardest in some ways, because as project management professionals, we are the ones that execute the strategy of the organization. We are the ones that work on projects for all other areas of the business. And in this new environment, they are asking us to deliver projects faster. Our priorities are constantly changing as the organization identifies the best ways to adapt to the shape of a business environment. So that project that you were working on 2 weeks ago, which was urgent, today they're bringing a new one and said this is more urgent than that one. You know, in the past, we might have been able to do like a 5-year plan with project managers or the PMO knowing way in advance what we'll be working on in future months. These days, there's likely to be much less certainty. You don't know what you're going to be working on 6 months down the line, or you don't even know how the scope of what you're working on is going to change in 3 months. This clearly has significant ramifications for project management professionals, because activities like planning or managing change all must be performed faster and even more efficiently than in the past. Even though they are giving us unclear outcomes, our projects are so diverse, our planning cycles are so short, but they expect even more from us these days. So how can the project management professional adapt? I've grouped how we can adapt into 3 areas that we can look at. First, we need a culture change. And then we need a mindset change. And then we have to acquire new knowledge. So these are the 3 sections that I think are every project management professional, every project management practice should do to adapt. When we talk about culture change, we can do a comparison of the traditional way of working where you had a centralized command and control, you have delivery at end of a project or program. That's not happening anymore. The new way of working, we expect incremental delivery, iterative cycles. We want to deliver value to the customer on a far more regular basis than at the end of your project. Our requirements are not fixed anymore. We now do prototypes. We now test ideas to see whether they are going to work. In the past, you had less uncertainty because you knew your scope from day one, and you know you are going to run with that scope. If even there were going to be some scope changes, they were minimal. These days, we embrace uncertainty. So the things that we are delivering is far less certain than we used to do in the past. In the end, though, the one thing that you have to remember is that whatever we are working on, the objective is to deliver value to the customer. Deliver value to the customer. Whether it's an internal customer or an external customer, we need to deliver value. Another thing that project management professionals need to do is have an open mindset. If we go with the fact that oh, this is how we have been doing this thing around here, we are not going to be successful. We have to be prepared to react and respond to opportunities. We have to be prepared to run projects in different sectors and areas that we have never done before. Deliver projects in ways that we have not done before. We need an open mindset. We need to be able to learn. And then we need to embrace change, because that's what's coming down the line. It's only change that is coming down the line, nothing more. The third thing that I think every project management professional needs is to have some key critical skills. And these skills is leadership skills. You need leadership skills to survive in this new environment. With leadership, you need to be honest. You need to have a vision. You need to be able to inspire, because you'll be working on teams with people with different source of motivation, and you need to be able to lead people towards a particular end. Communication has never been more important than now. When you communicate as a project management professional, you have to be able to bring clarity to what you're communicating. You have to be able to bring confidence, so that when you say this is what we are going to deliver X, people should believe in you that we are going to deliver X. The way things are moving, with new priorities coming on the line all the time, you have to be able to manage your time sufficiently. You know, there are times that you feel like the only thing that you are doing is reporting rather than even running your own projects. But you have to be able to balance that. You have to be able to organize your work in such a way that you are still delivering. You have to be able to prioritize, plan, and importantly, delegate. You don't have to do everything yourself. So empower people to do some of the work. Another skill that you need, diplomacy. Now, when I talk about diplomacy, I'm talking about being very good at negotiation, because the business, they want something, and when do they want it? They want it now. Being able to explain, being able to negotiate with your stakeholders and say, I know you want this, but how about I give you that for now and give you that later on? Or how about I switch these around? So being able to negotiate, being able to resolve conflict, because you will get those. Finally, I think that every project management professional needs critical thinking capability. You have to be able to understand the consequences of your actions, the consequences of what you are doing on your project. You have to be able to listen to your stakeholders, listen to understand. You have to be able to read into what you are doing 2 steps ahead. For every project management professional, I think these critical skills are very important. And that's how we adapt to this new environment. To summarize all this, I'll say that to survive and thrive in a business environment that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, organizations, project management professionals, we must adapt, and we must adapt fast. Gone are 5-year plans and bureaucracy of the past, and all those slow moving things that we used to do. Every single business function is now impacted. Teams must move faster and prioritize more efficiently. For project management professionals like ourselves, this means that we have to adapt how projects are delivered. We have to ensure that this is as efficient as possible. And that, remember this, continuous change can be responded to very rapidly by delivering value to our customers. It requires a hard look at what team members are doing and dropping what is no longer necessary. We might be asking our stakeholders for some things, but do we still need all those things? How can we change our operating model? And this means taking on board an agile mindset and a passion for change. So this is where I'll end this month's webinar. If you have any questions, I encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or you can send me an email and we can continue the conversation. Before I go, I'll leave you with these 3 books. If you want further reading on the subject of business agility, I think that these 3 books are a very good resource to continue the conversation. So PMI Ghana, thank you so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.